4, 3, 2, 1.
Whether you've been married 1 or 20 plus years, at some point you realize you married into crazy. And that's what our show is all about. If your marriage or relationship is compassionate, real, accountable, zealous and yielding, or just plain crazy, Snooks and Lovey offer love, laughter, and a dose of reality as they unpack this thing called marriage. Sit back, relax, and get your ear hustle on. It's time to start the conversation.
Welcome back to another episode of the Married into Crazy podcast with Snooks and Lovey.
I'm Snooks.
I'm Lovey. And we want to thank you for coming back to the podcast. You have a lot of choices for things that you can do, whether you're on your commute, in the yard gardening, on a run, jog, whatever. You could be doing a lot of different things, but you've chosen to spend some time with us, which means you care about your marriage or your long-standing relationship. Mm-hmm. For those of you that are new to the podcast, let's give you a little bit of background real quick. We'll catch you up. We met on a blind date.
But it wasn't a date, so it was a blind forced meet.
Yeah, we were tricked into meeting each other.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I fell in love immediately.
Love at first sight.
She's slow.
It took me 8 days.
It took her a little bit long, a little bit longer, like 8 days.
But
she told everyone that I was a nerd.
I didn't see.
And not her type.
To say that. I told everyone. I did not tell everyone. I told my family. I didn't know why they thought I would like him because he is not my type. And yeah.
I said I was a nerd, but nerds got game.
I did say he was a nerd. Yeah, I did say that. And yeah.
So it took her 8 days to fall in love.
Yes.
But so what ended up happening was about 4 months later, we got engaged.
Yep.
And her estranged ex-boyfriend, this guy that would just pop up every now and then, he was like brother man, just come out of nowhere, boom, just pop up. And he forced his way into her home.
5 days after our engagement.
Attacked her. Mm-hmm. We got into a fight as I was protecting her and ended up getting stabbed through the heart. I did say through. So I had to have 2 open heart surgeries. Mm-hmm. First one to save my life. Second one, they realized the knife went all the way through. I had to go back in to fix the hole in the backside of my heart. So you would think that would end there, right? Like a Disney story where everyone would say, okay, you know what? Live happily ever after. Not the case, because 4 years later.
4 years later, I told him I wanted a divorce at our 4-year anniversary dinner at Morton's. In between, what do you call it? The cream spinach and whatever.
And the baked potato.
We don't even eat cream spinach, but okay.
I didn't even finish my steak, and she was saying, it's over.
I didn't say it like that.
And so we had to work through some stuff.
Happened.
So we had to work through some stuff. That's what we're trying to relay to you, is that we're not just pontificating and talking about this perfect marriage.
I'm not.
We are saying that we had to go through some stuff. And while we were going through all of that, we went through counseling. We went through coaching. We bought the books. I'm not saying we read them, but we bought them.
I read them.
I didn't. And in that process, we discovered that we had to go through stuff. There was a lot of prayer. Mm-hmm. And over this period of time, we found our way back together. We figured it out. We found our way back, but we also discovered that we wanted to become that couple that we needed when we were going through those things.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So as a result of that, over time, we ended up developing Married into Crazy. And what does crazy stand for?
Compassionate, real, accountable, zealous, and yielding. So in that, actually, that wasn't what we set out to do. It was very organic. Like Lovey said, we realized that what we needed, we didn't really find. And not that there aren't other, there's therapy and counseling and coaching and stuff like that. But it was nothing that we could that really resonated with us. So we ended up basically kind of making crazy happen, and just realizing that everyone could be more compassionate, real, accountable, zealous, and yielding in their marriage.
Right. And you heard it here. She said that she drove me crazy. You heard it. She said it. So listen.
So that was how many years ago was that?
28 years ago, 29 years ago.
No, that happened 25
Well, we met 29 years ago. But here's the deal.
You don't pay attention.
We made the podcast so we can actually share with you. We have free information. Every week we've been coming to you since 2018 to do several things. One, to share stories, talk about different experiences, not just our marriage, but also bring you other couples as they've gone through their trials, tribulations, and triumphs. But we've also brought you subject matter experts in a variety of different capacities. We brought you award-winning Grammy award-winning artists. We brought you professional athletes. We brought you the couple next door. We brought you all kinds of individuals as well as professionals. A couple of weeks ago, you had a therapist. We've had sexologists come on here.
For the month of, was it May?
This week, we actually have something that we've been just dying to do, and that's bring on a medical doctor. Because the month of June, by the time you see this, is actually passed, but the month of June was the Men's Health Month, and we really wanted to focus on men's health. Mm-hmm. So we thought it would be amazing to bring on a medical doctor to talk about some things that men should be doing or could be doing that can have a positive impact on their marriage. So without further ado, we'd like to welcome Dr. Ozzie Granardo out of Denver, Colorado. You know what? I got a little sound here.
Oh, great.
Welcome to the show.
Perfect way to start.
Hey, Dr. Granardo, welcome to the show. If you would tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm a family medicine doc. I was born and raised in Colorado, Colorado Springs. I went out to the Bay Area for school, loved it. So love California. Came back because I was a nerd and wanted to be back home real quick.
That's right. Nerds unite.
Yeah, true. Oh, man. And so then did school and went into med school, started practice, and then became over time, became the chief diversity inclusion officer for Centura, which was a combination of Common Spirit and Advent Health hospitals. So we had about 20 hospitals. And so loved the work that I did there. And then also was the chief medical officer for our 20 hospitals and was very excited about that. We worked on quality safety. But the thing that really moved me was the work that we did around DE&I. So that to me is most important. Now I've got a private practice, and we just set up a free clinic at the Center for African American Health in Denver, Colorado, so that we could start seeing people, Black people, and for them to be treated, knowing that they're going to see providers who look like themselves. And we know that when there's that race concordance, when your patients look like you as your doc, the outcomes are much, much better. Mm-hmm. So excited about doing that, and excited to be asked to be on this podcast.
So I want to ask you a question. Did you always want to be a doctor, or is it kind of something you fell into?
Yeah. So my mom told me around 6 years old I was going to be a doctor, and my brother was going to be a lawyer, and he's younger than me. And so when he went to med school and I wasn't yet in medical school, I knew I had to start turning my ways. I needed to get back on that bus. And yeah, because my grades weren't as good coming out of school, out of college as they should have been. So I had to do some extra work to get in. But
okay. Late bloomers, You know what? That's all right.
Yeah. I thought I was a shit. I thought I was the best. I could do no wrong, and I had no clue what life was about. I really didn't.
Isn't that all of us, though? But it's funny. I want to circle back to.
It's not all of us. Maybe it's just me, and I don't know because I didn't think that. So, okay, go ahead.
Anyway, see what I deal with on a daily basis. But what's funny though is that one of the things that you mentioned was about representation, about being able to see a provider that looks like you. I think health outcomes has a lot more to do than just showing up and seeing and listening to your doctor. I think that trust is a huge component to that on the follow through, because there's a lot, just even being a patient, trust has the ability to make sure that I'm following through when it comes to making sure I'm taking my medication. I'm doing all the things and following the prescription that you've given me. And if I don't trust you, then I'm not sure I'm going to follow through, because I've heard time and time again, that doctor don't know what he's talking about or what have you, because there's an element of like, I don't believe it. And you and I both know, and I hope that if our listeners don't know this, there's a long history of experimentation that's taken place in the African American community.
Unethical experiments.
Yes. Yeah. And so it's that trust that you have to have with the provider that then creates hopefully better outcomes. And with historical issues around the Tuskegee experiments, which were terrible, where they gave black men syphilis and didn't actually treat them, knowing that the treatment was penicillin and they had it, just to see how bad it would get. Disgusting. The father of gynecology did experiments on black slaves to see what kind of pain threshold they had and to do surgeries and rearrange organs without the consent that they needed. So throughout medical history, at least U.S. medical history, it's been terrible. And to be able to then trust a doc to do this is great. Let me give you a great stat.
Okay.
So 1 or 2 years ago, a study came out, I think in JAMA, Journal of the American Medical Association, and it looked at if you have a black doc in a county, that the life expectancy for not only the black people in there, but for all the residents goes up by a few to several years. Just one black doc. So you think about how many counties don't have that. You think about how many cities don't have that, towns have that. But when they looked at that in the South, especially, just having that black doc there meant so much to the community, that trust, that life expectancy was actually changed. Fantastic. So we need more black docs. We need more people who look like us to take care of our populations.
That's right.
That's huge.
And
That's huge.
You hear that, like with a lot of older individuals. I know for one, my grandmother, she was not trusting at all, and she was like, like you said, that doctor don't know what he talking about, or that wasn't. They was thinking about somebody else when they gave me, and I remember that stuff. So when I go to the doctor, I always make sure I'm asking questions, and I'm like, I've done my research. Like, okay, so what is the lifetime? How long should I be on this medication? And what is, what are the side effects or whatever outside of what's on the little bottle, and is this geared towards African Americans, or is it just something that was for the Europeans and European folk, and now you're just giving it to black people? And how do you know how it's gonna, affect us? So
Yeah.
they don't like it, but I don't care.
How many, so, how many dudes do you think actually do that? How many black men do you think are prepared like that, ready to go in, start asking questions? So, that's the beauty of having a female in your life, is that piece of listening to them and trying to then, mimic some of the things that they do, because women advocate so well for themselves that it's really wonderful when women come in, they start talking about things like you were just talking about. You're prepared, you're asking the right questions. Dudes are just a little different.
A little different. Wait, before you go there,
No.
Stop.
I just want you to go back just a little bit to the very beginning when he said, listening to your women. That's all I got to say. We could close the podcast. Thanks, Doc. Peace. We done.
Welcome.
You were supposed to come on here and side with me. You didn't get the wink, the nod, nothing. You didn't catch any of that. But I'm actually going to side with what you said as well. One of the few times I'm going to agree with my wife.
Wow.
Because it's very true. And I can say, going back to 2019, 2020, if it wasn't for my wife, I would have delayed my diagnosis for bladder cancer.
Oh, jeez.
Because for years, literally years, I would have blood in my urine, but I blamed it on, I worked out too hard, or I ran too hard. I was, running half marathons, or I was doing CrossFit. There was some machismo. There was some kind of ego-laden reason or rationalization as to why there was a little bit of blood in there. And right before COVID hit, actually right when COVID was hitting, I was getting ready to go out on a sales call, and I thought, let me use the restroom before I get on the road. I was going to drive into the bay, and it was like the Red Sea. And I was like, oh, okay, that's not good.
Yeah.
Being the idiot that I am, rather than jump in my car and go to the hospital, I call my wife. Hey,
That's not
do you
being
know
an
what just
idiot.
happened? So I'm telling her, knowing, okay, you should get your butt in the car and go see a doctor. And I was like, babe, what do you think I should do? And I'm educated. I'm a pretty smart guy. And she was like, are you, I think her exact words were, are you stupid? Go see the
I did
doctor.
not say that. I did not
That's
say
what
you
she was
stupid.
saying.
I
That's what
was
she was.
probably thinking it, but
No, but I want to put, so, I mean, that's true. But so it took that for me to actually finally go see a doctor, but it was at the
Mhm.
behest of my wife. I will tell
Yeah.
you that, so for many years, I've been a pharmaceutical rep, from my 9 to 5.
Mm.
And I worked, so you're familiar with the AMA, the
Yeah.
American Medical Association. It is for those of you that don't know, it is the African American equivalent, if you will, for like not the AMA, there's the NMA, I'm sorry, the NMA.
Right.
The
It's like
National
the
Medical Association is the African American version of the AMA, the American Medical Association. It's just an African American and medical association. And every year, one of the companies I used to work for used to sponsor prostate screening at the NMA for doctors. And my company did it year after year after year after year. And because we sponsored it, I can't tell you how many years that we'd be sitting there, we'd serve coffee and all that. Doctors would bring their wives, and I can't tell you how many wives would tell me and thank me for what our company was doing, because says, do you know that my husband's been practicing medicine for X amount of years, 20 years, 30 years, and the only time he will get his prostate checked or his PSA levels is when he comes here. And
wow.
these were doctors
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
giving advice
Yeah.
to everyone else and still were reluctant to getting themselves checked.
It's amazing. It's amazing what we'll talk about as a doc, but won't do for ourselves, and the cognitive dissonance, just knowing we should be doing it for ourselves and still not doing it. And then especially as black men, it's terrible. It's terrible. So I'm glad you've got a wife to lean on. Man, so early in my career, I think I had a woman come in, she's talking about all the stuff that she's got going on. And I was like, oh God, I don't want to hear any of this. So so then, I knew what her diagnosis was. I knew what I was going to do for her. And so I ignored some of the things that she was saying, some of the warning signs that she was telling me about. Her intuition was flaring. I was like, I'm not. Yeah, I'm smarter. I'm smarter than you. I'm going to tell you what's going on. And she was exactly right. I had
wow.
missed the diagnosis. She was right. I should have got to it sooner if I would have listened to her. And from then on, anytime a woman told me what was going on, I would always listen and always be like, that's where I need to go first, because we've got to address it. With guys, they come in, they don't know what the heck they're talking about. Oh, my wife told me to come in. What'd your wife say? I don't know. She said I got something. So yeah, it's a much more difficult conversation.
I can only laugh because that is so true. So, look, okay, so it's a great segue. So, the purpose for having it here is because we need to fix this. And I think that we're down for marriage. We're down for having a long, productive, happy, healthy
Healthy.
marriage.
Yeah.
So, we'd love to hear, like, over the past 25 plus years of your practice and your experience, what would you identify, if you could, just reaching into the annals of your memory, what would you identify as like maybe the top 4 or 5 things that if men grasped or took care of or paid attention to, it would lend itself to them having the ability to really have a positive impact on their marriage?
Outside of listening to their wives.
And that's number one. That is number one for sure. Because there's so many men who, when they do listen to their wives, it's right on. So that's one, we know that. All right. So then I'll give you 4 or 5 others. The second one is, do you know who you are as a healing, feeling body? Do you know physically what is going on with you. There's so many men with symptoms. You're seeing blood, man. You saw blood in your urine, and so that's a warning sign. And I think in the way, so I played football for years, and we're if you get a little bump, a bruise, you get hurt, you ignore it. And so many times I think we as men ignore things that we really shouldn't. So I think it's being even more vigilant about different symptoms that are going on or different changes. If you notice changes in your body that are different, some of it is to say, where did it come from? Why did it happen? But if you don't know for sure, it's not to then say, oh, I don't know what it is. We'll just see if it comes back. It's trying to figure out what's going on, and then hopefully either looking on the internet to start off, asking your wife, or it's for me, hopefully then going in to see a doc.
Okay, that's good. I like that. So it's about having that awareness.
Yeah, for sure, for sure, for
Okay.
sure. Then the second thing is then really looking at and knowing what the screenings are. So when we say there are health screenings that you can get for preventive care, that really means what has been shown to actually have evidence that says if you get screened, if you have a test, or if you have some imaging that looks at a certain body part or a certain process, does that show that you're normal, or do you have something more problematic, like colon cancer? So we know, for instance, colon cancer affects Black men and women sooner than it does white women and men. So what we saw was a change in some of the recommendations because people were getting colon cancer a lot earlier. When Chadwick Boseman gets cancer and passes away from it earlier than 45 years old, which is now the new level of age to get screened, then we've got to be doing something different. And so a lot of that is knowing what some of the screenings are. Prostate screening, you mentioned that, colon cancer screening. Um, we've got to figure out with those screenings when to get them, talking to your provider about it, because then that'll set you up to eliminate the easy things that you can eliminate in terms of cancers or in terms of chronic issues. So that piece is big because then you're really keeping yourself healthy for years to come, and that will help obviously with your health in your marriage.
So on that note, let me ask you this. Now, keep track of where you want to go with the next few topics, but
Yeah.
how do we get Black men in particular on the train when it comes to getting a colonoscopy? Because there's a lot of men I have in my family that are like, I ain't doing that.
Yeah.
They won't. And even when I've told them about like Cologuard or some of the other ones, regardless, I'd say that's better than not doing anything at all. Even with all the false positives or whatever. I mean, depending upon where you're coming from, anything's better than nothing. They're still like,
Yes.
you know what? I'm not going to worry about it. That's for somebody else. How do we educate and get them? How do you reach these individuals and kind of get them to raise that awareness level, like you were talking about before?
Man, it's hard. So you just said you were just talking about why do I have to do it? Why is it for me? So my dad, I'm a stinking doctor, and he loves saying doctors are for white people. He didn't need to do anything. It's like, dude, doctors aren't just for white people. I'm your freaking son, and I'm a doctor. Why are you saying that? But it's that disconnect that he had. And so, yeah, it's a tough conversation. So I'm saying, even with my dad, it was hard. He ended up passing away from lung cancer probably just last year. So it was last year, April.
Oh,
And so
sorry to hear that.
he didn't get the screenings that he needed. My daughter and I forced him to get initial screenings, and then he didn't follow up with them, and then it turned into nodules, turned into cancer because he was a smoker all of his life. Man, he went to the doctor. We went with him for a visit, and he told the doctor's asking him for the screening, do you have any family members who have had lung cancer? He said no. I said, Dad, Your brother had lung cancer and had his part of his lung removed. So it's
Right.
so much of it is it's got to be. I think I think having people in the community, having trusted advisors, having trusted leaders, patriarchs, matriarchs of the family, really pushing down and saying you need to get this,
Mm-hmm.
and creating stories around it. When I tell
Right.
Black patients about Chadwick Boseman and the issues that he had with not getting, um, he got the appropriate screening, but there wasn't appropriate screening because he was too young for it. But he knew that when he had issues, he went and got treated for it. It's that piece of what stories can we tell that are powerful in our community or in our family to really then move people to get the care that they need. Otherwise, it's difficult. So I'll tell you this: we've got at the Center for African American Health in Denver, they have barbershop talks, and these barbershop talks are really ones taking the place of actually in a barbershop, moving it into this clinic. And so men sit around and talk about issues that we don't want to talk about. And
Hmm.
Good.
so
That's what's up.
having those opportunities to get those men involved and talking about their health will then create stories for them to discuss with others and their family about what's going on, their reluctance to engage, their wanting to be healthy but have issues with X, Y, and Z. But that colorectal cancer, it sounds like a terrible process for some people, it is, but it saved this person's life. I
Hmm.
had polyps. My dad had polyps, so I had to get screened earlier than normal. And with doing that, then I saved myself years of problems by getting those polyps out. And so I think it's that storytelling, and then breaking down barriers and having people who you trust really give you that information.
That's huge. And I think one word just came to mind when you were sharing all of that. And that's advocacy. It's like in doing all that, you're creating advocacy within the community, and those stories open up doors.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So that's
for sure.
huge.
And I like that the barbershop talks because in our community is the barbershop for the men, but it's the beauty shop or the salon for the women, and that's like the safe space, but still to create that type of atmosphere to where they can actually get some healing. I think that's amazing. I like that.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
So they introduced me. So we started our free clinic just a week and a half ago, and so they were having the barbershop clinic there that evening, and it was going to end before our clinic ended, so those people could come over if they wanted to see us. And so I went in there, and we're talking about colorectal cancer and prostate exams. So I told them, look, come on by. You can get a free prostate exam. I got small fingers. Good to go. Come on by. Come on by. We didn't get many people who came in that evening.
That's funny. But you know
But
what? It's going to take some time. You know what?
yeah,
And
yeah.
but that's kudos to you though. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, I just want to say congratulations on what is it, the Center for African American Health.
Yeah.
So needed.
Mhm.
So needed. We could talk for hours on this. I mean, it's needed. So, what are some other topics that you or things that come to mind?
Then it's classic things, chronic conditions like hypertension, diabetes, when high cholesterol. Those are simple things that we can treat. So again, it's getting into your provider, getting a screen, going into Walgreens or Walmart where they have those automatic cuffs and testing your blood pressure.
Mm.
It's when there are health fairs, and if it's a place you feel comfortable, it's getting and checking your glucose to see if you've got an elevated glucose, which would then lead us to think that you might have diabetes. There are so many simple, easy things that we can screen for that we can help. That if you don't do it, it's like, gosh, come on. We don't want you to have high blood pressure for years and then have a stroke or a heart attack on the other end of it. when we could have identified that so much earlier, and then you have an easy life by taking a pill. So that's the screening for that, and we can talk about those chronic conditions. But before that is before you even need to take a pill, before you even get hypertension, it's what are you doing to your body with what foods you're putting in, and what are you doing for exercise. And so just having those two pieces, the food piece, boy, if people ate better, we'd have a lot less chronic condition issues. And
Right.
so the best foods to me taste like McDonald's. so, so get out of that mind that mind
Right.
meld that McDonald's has with me. It's hard, but there are certain foods that really resonate with certain people, and it's trying to figure out for yourself what are the best, healthiest foods for you that make you feel good, that make you feel like you are alive and you don't have issues then with fatigue or brain fog. But it's really trying to figure out what's the best diet for you and how can you exercise 30 minutes a day, breaking a sweat 5 days a week. And if you can do those two things, that really then sets you up to not have to worry about many of those chronic issues later on.
It's I when you were talking about diet, I thought about Dave Chappelle. I don't know if you remember, but he was talking about he was saying that what the number one killer of African Americans is. He's like, it's table salt, and everybody started laughing. I was like, wow, it is, because we put salt on everything. I mean, as a people, we put salt on everything, and that little table salt will kill you.
Agreed. It raises blood pressure. You raise blood pressure, then the vessels of the walls get torn down. Then you get cholesterol built up on them. That leads to heart attacks, or the pressure's too big and too bad, and then it explodes and the blood's rushing everywhere internally. That's a stroke. So no, that's exactly it. It's terrible.
In our, I belong to a men's group, and it's predominantly African American. And one of the guys said something so profound last week. And we were just talking about some of the things, some of the, it's mid year. What are we going to focus on for the rest of the year? And he said one of the things that he was committing to was to help people stop committing slow suicide. And we had to stop the call. Like, okay, well, hold on. What are you talking about? And he said that it was, no, if you think about it, he's like, everyone's so concerned about these fast deaths. We talk about, because June is also Gun Violence Awareness Month. Yeah. And there's a lot of promise for that. He goes, but we forget about the slow suicide that takes place every time you put something in your mouth. The food we're eating, the choices we're making on a daily basis. He goes, every time, you're getting that ice cream, this, that, and he goes, there's nothing wrong with it. He goes, but it is a slow death that we're committing. And we don't really focus on that. And he had everybody was like, okay, that's a showstopper right there, because we don't really think about that.
Wow.
Profound. And then you think about when we went through COVID, Black men and Black women lost years of life in terms of life expectancy. I think it was 5 to 7 years of life expectancy was shaven off when we got through the pandemic. And so when we run into big things, it affects us way more. And small things like you're talking about that we could actually fix and help and decrease the issues that we have later on, we don't do. And so hopefully there's a renaissance. Hopefully there's something that we need to get going in our community. And there has been in a lot of different places, but really getting back to what are the healthiest things we can eat? What are the substitutions we can make for salt? Like stupid Mrs. Dash. So I've got a stinking Mrs. Dash right next to my salt thing. And like an idiot, I don't use it. So it's making those simple choices before you have issues long term. But it's making that decision and knowing that hopefully that's going to be a something that's really going to benefit your health in the long run.
One of the things I want to share is that it was a practice that we did, and this is not like a pat on the back, but it's funny how something so small could be so impactful. We started a garden. Thought, we'll grow some tomatoes, whatever. There was a purpose. Our son passed away a couple of years ago, and we created a garden in memoriam to him. And he was a chef, and so we call it Caitlin's Kitchen. So it's like, we're going to grow the stuff that he liked, that we like to eat as well. But in doing that, we love going out to the garden and picking tomatoes and grabbing some of the herbs. And I find myself, I cook more now than I probably ever have in the last 28 years of our marriage, because I enjoy that aspect of it. Like right now, there's some tomatoes. I'm like checking the tomatoes every day because some of the heirlooms are finally coming in. And she got excited because the bell peppers are coming in. It's just like little things. But just doing that changes.
It's a game changer.
The perspective on, like, I'm looking forward to eating vegetables probably for the first time in my life.
So let's be clear though. I don't love going out and picking anything. I love to look out the window and be like, "Oh, look, that's so good. Yeah, bring them in and wash them." But I'm not going out there and picking anything except for my lemons. We have a lemon tree also. That's my own little thing. I'll go get my lemons, but it's flies and all that stuff over there. I don't like the bugs, so yeah, I want them to get all the other stuff.
Well, what a great thing for you guys to do together, and what a great thing it is for you guys. Terrible and tough out of tragedy, but then to do that, and then from that springs health for you guys. That's really, it's a beautiful symbol of your love and marriage. It really is.
Yeah.
Except you don't want to pick anything up.
I'm not picking nothing.
She'll eat it though.
I will eat it.
Definitely. Well, these are some great topics. Is there anything else that stands out to you that you feel like, if I had to add one more thing?
Yeah, the last thing would be your mental health. And so hopefully the guy you had before talked about it, but it's really figuring out how you're feeling, talking about it in a way that's comfortable for you, or it's really looking at how can you address some of the issues in your life in a better way? How can you improve your mental health as you're trying to improve your physical health? And that's something that a lot of Black men and in our community really don't look at or aren't as focused on. And so one, it's, as we talked about, and as you said, it's being self-aware. That self-awareness physically needs to hopefully delve into your mental health, and you figure out when you're sad, why are you sad? When you're angry, why are you angry? Can you change that? There's something called weathering. Are you guys familiar with weathering?
Weathering, no.
Crazy concept. So not crazy, but incredibly interesting. So there's several books being written about a lot of journal articles about weathering, which is when women and men who are Black and racial ethnic minorities, when they feel the effects of racism on a daily basis, that weathering, like a rock, wears them down over time and affects not only their physical health, but their mental health. And so a lot of this is, how can we decrease this weathering? How can you be conscious of the things going on around you that are affecting you, and you trying to then hopefully lead a better, healthy life and making healthy decisions about those external things that are causing problems. And so it's really being internally driven to say, all right, is something bothering me? Is something going on? Is it affecting the way I'm relating to my wife or my spouse? How are we getting through this together, knowing that all these things are going on that could be affecting how you feel? And so a lot of this to me is understanding who you are in your own body, and then understanding what's going on in your heart, and from a mental aspect, mental health aspect, it's really then trying to hone in on those things and making sure that you are understanding the inputs that you're getting that are really causing problems that you can deal with, and doing it in a healthy way, whether or not it's talking to someone, um, talking in a group, and most men don't like doing that, or sometimes it's journaling. But there are simple ways to really help your mental health, especially with all the things that we experience.
That's really good.
Yeah, that is.
Thanks for sharing that. And I love the fact that we're doubling down on mental health, because one of the things that we even talked about last week was that we'll come see you, right? If my arm is hurting, or if my stomach's hurting, or if I'm having some challenges with my heart, we'll go see our family practitioner. But when we're having some challenges with depression, or anxiety, or whatever, we try and tough it out. It's like, oh, it's no big deal. But we forget that it's our mind, it's our brain that controls everything else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if this thing is kind of, if the dummy panel is going off, all the lights are going off,
Right.
We're not paying attention to it. That's a challenge.
But you're exactly right. And the great thing for being a man, black man with a black woman in a marriage, if you listen to her, she will already know what the heck is going on. She will be able to drive and direct you to say, look, sucker, this is what's happening. Did you realize that or not? So that check-in with your spouse, I think, is always a good idea.
You could come back next week and say the same thing if you like.
I was just thinking, she's going to say this is her favorite episode.
Yep, I'm just saying. He said that like 4 times, so it must be a thing. It must be real.
Well, Dr. Granado, I'm sorry you have to go now.
Mike, having troubles?
Exactly. No, but in all reality, thank you so much for spending time with us. We do truly appreciate it.
Definitely.
This is valuable information. And listen, to everyone out there that's listening, if you found the information that you're hearing today or that you're seeing to be valuable, and that somebody can benefit from this, share this episode with that man, with that couple, with that woman, with that spouse, with someone that can truly benefit from it.
So I'm sorry. I feel like we should talk about, I know you talked about the free clinic, but if you're in the Colorado area or wherever, where would people be able to find this at?
Yeah, so that Center for African American Health is in the heart of Denver and Park Hill, and so really good resources around. It's got that barbershop talk. They do an expo, a health affair expo, all the time, and so they're at Colorado. I think it's Denver. No, the Center for African American Health, CAAH.org maybe. But there are so many. But so great you mentioned that. It's really thinking about and being active about where are the places I can actually go get help, and where do I trust, and where have people in my community gone, and trying to figure that out. But for us in Denver, it's that. There are multiple other places, but so much of it is, you mentioned, or as you both mentioned earlier, it's that trust piece that's incredibly important.
And I was going to go there after
He
made
wasn't
that
going to go
announcement.
there. That's why I said it.
I was going to go there. But also, since we're doing this right now, but tell us about OG Health.
Oh, OG Health. So it's a concierge medicine practice. I love it because I can spend as much time as I want with my patients. I got a sweet office. It's got all the stuff I want in the background. So it's got Denver Broncos helmet, the old D. It's got Stanford stuff up on there. It's got Denver Nuggets, former NBA champs a couple years ago. So yeah, so it's got all kinds of things that I love, and it feels like home to me, and it's fun to see patients. So I was seeing patients with regular insurance through a company, and I was seeing 12 patients in 3 hours and doing physicals with that. So that's not healthy. That's not a way to
Right.
to take care of people. So it was fun for me to move to this OG Health.
So it's concierge service to where you can truly listen
Get to know your patients.
and know your patient.
Yeah. So it's been nice. I love it.
Well, we're going to put links to both the Center for African American Health and OG Health in the show notes, so people can actually find both when they research this. When you take a look at the podcast itself. But getting back to what I was saying earlier, before my wife, interrupted me.
Whatever.
For those of you that want to share this episode, please do, because there's somebody out there that needs to hear the information that Dr. Granardo shared. Because there's men out there like myself, and I'm guilty, as I admitted earlier, that have signs and that have ignored them long enough. So we need to get this information out and just a little nudge to get them to go see their doctor so you can have a long life, so you can actually have that healthy life with your spouse or with that person you're in a committed long-term relationship with. We want you to live a long life. And it starts with having the awareness that Dr. Granardo was talking about. So until the next time.
I can talk now. Be
Be
blessed.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Married Into Crazy podcast with Snooks and Lovey. Please like, subscribe to, and review the show wherever you access it, and tell a friend about us. Visit marriedintocrazy.com and see how Snooks and Lovey can bless your marriage directly.